going on, Reyes fans in YouTube? It's your boy Gabriel Reyes, and if you guys saw the title of this video, then yes, it's that time of year again. Halloween is just around the corner, and it is time to do some Halloween editions of my reviews of television and movies, as well as Halloween edition of all my other videos I have on my YouTube channel. But of course, for this video, I'm going to be doing my review of the Simpsons Halloween Special II, also known as the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror 2. So without further ado, let's get started. As usual, I'll give you guys the plot line of the episode, and as well as my thoughts on the episode as a whole. So the longest running animated show of all time, The Simpsons, started to go on its second Halloween special, and in this Halloween special, it's pretty much, the plotline is connected with both Bart, Lisa, and Homer, in which they each have nightmares for eating too much Halloween candy, and it's really interesting of how their nightmares start and end to go into the next segment of this Halloween special. We start off with Lisa's nightmare, in which it's a parody of the monkey's paw, in which you get, of course, in the Simpsons universe, they get 4 wishes because of everybody having 4 fingers. So the monkey's paw has 4 fingers. So of course, the Simpson family are in the Middle East, on vacation. Homer sees the monkey's paw and decides to buy it, but of course the merchant warns Homer about it, and Homer, being the, dumbass that he is, buys the paw anyway. So now the whole family is trying to decide what they want to do with their wishes. Unknowingly, Maggie ends up making the first wish. Her first wish is that she ends up wishing for a new shiny pacifier. Yeah, that's what she wished for. The second wish ends up going to Bart, and he wishes for the whole family to be rich and famous. So they're stockpiled with a lot of money, and of course now their family is now known throughout, their whole town and probably everywhere now. And at that point, everybody's just getting annoyed and bored of the Simpsons because they're well known and famous now. And of course, that kind of backfires on them quite a bit. Lisa ends up making the third wish, and she wishes for world peace, in which everybody in the world and all the presidents, all the countries have now declared peace with one another. They get rid of all their guns and everything, and like I said, it's all world peace. But Kang and Kodos are observing the Earth from their spaceship, and they end up using that to their advantage, in which they invade the Earth with puny handheld weapons, and of course they end up enslaving the Earth. And of course everybody hates the Simpsons for, making this all happen. So in order for the whole family to know if their fourth and final wish is not going to backfire, Homer ends up wishing for a turkey sandwich. Yeah, he ends up wishing for a sandwich. He takes a bite out of it. Everything's all good until he realizes that the turkey is a little dry. I know. I'd be disappointed too if the turkey was dry. So, just as Homer is about to throw the monkey paw away, Ned Flanders ends up talking to Homer, but then Homer realizes that he could give it to Ned to see if Ned's wishes will backfire on him. But of course, that actually doesn't end up happening. Ned's first wish is that he wishes that the aliens would go away, and once he makes that wish, we see in the background that Kodos was chasing after Mo, and then right as the wish was granted, Mo ends up having a 2x4 with a nail in it chasing after Kodos. And God, that was just too hilarious. That was just a flip around. So Kang and Kodos end up leaving. Ned is declared a hero by the whole town, and his second wish is that he made his house into a castle. And that's the end of Lisa's nightmare. We then jump into Bart's nightmare, and Bart's nightmare is actually based off of an episode of The Twilight Zone, and in which Bart has psychic powers, in which he can read the thoughts of everybody in Springfield. And at this point, everybody is just afraid. They are scared the shit out of Bart because, like I said, he has psychic powers. He can hear everybody's thoughts, and in order for the whole town to make sure that nothing happens to them, they have to think happy thoughts. And amongst all of that, there comes a point where Homer tries to bash Bart's head with a chair, but Bart ends up turning Homer into a jack-in-the-box. Marge, fed up with what Bart just did, takes Bart to a psychiatrist. And of course, Marge and Homer have to be there. The psychiatrist ends up telling Homer that it's his responsibility to spend time with Bart, in which, by doing that, Bart's antics will dumb down. So Homer and Bart end up having a father-son day, doing all kinds of activities together, and towards the end of the nightmare, Homer and Bart see eye to eye now, and Bart ends up changing Homer back to his normal self. And as soon as they tell each other that they love each other, right when Homer gives Bart a kiss on the forehead, Bart wakes up from his nightmare screaming. So that's Bart's nightmare, is telling his father that he loves him. We now get to Homer's nightmare, and in his nightmare, he is fired from his job from Mr. Burns, and he ends up getting a new job as a gravedigger, and of course, being the lazy slop that he is, ends up falling asleep in the grave. So the whole thing of Homer getting fired by Mr. Burns is the fact that he wants to replace all of his employees with robots. So what does he and Mr. Smithers do? They go to the graveyard to see if they can find a fresh dead body that still has a brain that's intact. They end up seeing Homer in the grave that he was digging, and they just end up taking him. Take him back to the nuclear power plant, do brain surgery, cut his head open, take the brain out, put it in the robot. Coincidentally, the robot looks a lot like a giant robot Homer. So the operation is a success, but being that it's still Homer's brain, his brain ends up, taking control of the robot, but of course the robot ends up being lazy. And of course Mr. Burns is just sad and disappointed about it, and decides to end the whole thing. He tells Mr. Smithers to take the brain, flush it down the toilet, but of course Smithers, being the good man that he is, suggests that they put his brain back into Homer's body. So towards the end, Mr. Burns just does a little kick at the robot, and then all of a sudden the robot ends up falling on Mr. Burns, and of course Mr. Burns is trying to run, but he's just running slow. It crushes him, and then he's telling Smithers to go to his office to get some ether, and then at that moment, Homer ends up screaming, waking up from his nightmare. So just as Homer goes into the bathroom he just goes into the bathroom, he ends up seeing Mr. Burns' head on his neck, and it prompts Homer to believe that it's just a dream, but in reality it actually happened. And dude, I think that was the biggest twist that they could ever do in this episode of the Simpsons Halloween Special. So that ending, oh god, it was both twisted and hilarious. Okay, so now my thoughts on the episode overall. Again, this was the Simpsons, this was their second Halloween special to do, and I gotta say, the writer, like the whole crew, they really amped it up on the whole scariness and the parody of any kind of sci-fi and horror TV shows that inspired the Simpsons Halloween specials. And the Simpsons Halloween Special II, they definitely win. They definitely went a little bit more further with this one. And I gotta say, the Simpsons Halloween Special II is definitely one of my favorites, because the fact that they made the connection with Bart, Lisa, and Homer of all their nightmares being the segments of this episode. And it really primes up the fact that if you definitely eat too much candy, you'll definitely get nightmares. I think that happened to me once. I can't really remember. But nonetheless, the Halloween special was great. Just watching it again and just remembering that, that these were the early seasons of The Simpsons, and their Halloween specials were always the most exciting thing to watch during the Halloween season. Alright you guys, so that was my review of the Simpsons Halloween Special II, the Treehouse of Horror 2. Like, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit the little notification bell as well. Okay you guys, I'm Gabriel Reyes, I'm out. I'll actually see you in the next review of the Simpsons Halloween specials. I'll see you there.